Well, even after the two presidents, President Paul Kagame of Rwanda and Felix Tshisekedi of DRC, met in Doha to discuss the issues and the security crisis in eastern DRC, the fighting is still continuing. And in the latest move in eastern DRC, the M23 have taken over Walikale. That is the most western part that the M23 has secured in this onslaught against the Congolese government in eastern DRC. And they are just 400 kilometers shy from getting to the fourth largest city in DRC. I'm talking about Kisangani. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the progress that the M23 are making in eastern DRC, even though the talks by the two presidents notified that there should be a ceasefire. We still have fights in different parts of the region. Even in the south, the Congolese government is fiercely fighting the M23 to recover Bukavu. Well, this is Bonafide. If you haven't subscribed, kindly subscribe and hit that notification button so that when I release something new on the DRC crisis, you get notified as soon as possible. Well, the question that is in the minds of many is, were the talks rushed? Was the meeting rushed? Or was it not just genuine? Because we had statements from different presidents who attended the Doha meeting. I'm talking about Felix Tshisekedi and Paul Kagame, and they all released a statement saying that we had a meeting, we had a talk with the president of each country, and this is what we came about as resolutions for our talk. And part of those resolutions were a ceasefire, that there will be peace in eastern DRC as talks continue, even as the meeting on Tuesday flopped because the M23 said they will not attend while the European Union is continuing the sanctions, even when there is goodwill from the M23 to have direct negotiations with Kinshasa. We still have conflict in DRC, and the M23 is continuing to gain ground in eastern DRC. The latest move by the M23 has seen the forces entering Walikale territory. A statement that was released by one of the residents in Walikale denoted that gunfire rang out from near towns of Nyabangi onwards towards Walikale. And a more precise information came from an army source that denoted that the M23 overran an army position outside the town, that is the FARDC, in a surprise attack and battled soldiers and pro-government militia. This was the onslaught that the M23 waged on Walikale. And as I started by saying, this is the most western part that now the M23 has extended, and it is just 400 kilometers shy from getting to Kisangani. And Kisangani is DRC's fourth largest city. Right now, we are talking about the M23 having control of Goma. They have control of Bukavu, even though the FARDC is waging a war to retake Bukavu. The M23 is still having a control of Bukavu. And now they are advancing onwards, taking over Walikale, bringing them closer to taking Kisangani. These are major cities in the DRC. This is where the population is, the administration is. This is where the majority of the people live. And when they take over these towns, they establish their administrative positions in this particular town, meaning that they not only take over these territories, they govern them, they rule them with the new form of governance. For example, the Salongo that has been implemented in Goma and Bukavu, that residents will come out at particular days of the week to simply clean and make their towns to look presentable for anyone who would like to visit, or the residents of that town. So we are seeing a different dimension in how the M23 is approaching the governance of these territories that it is taking. Well, the M23 gave its demands, and it said that it will only go back to the table with the Kinshasa government if the European Union dropped its sanctions against its top brass in leadership. And that means that all the condemnations and the sanctions that have been put should be withdrawn so that the M23 will have that discussion with Kinshasa. Of course, many had hoped that these discussions will end the conflict that is ongoing in eastern DRC in some way, to come with an agreement of how these two parties will coexist in the country DRC. But it is also important to note that both of these two parties have very hard standings that makes it very difficult for them to agree on anything. because one of the top demands right now of the M23 is that the Kinshasa government is incapable of leading the DRC, that Felix Tshisekedi should no longer be the president and a new government should govern DRC. On the other hand, the DRC is saying that the M23 should not be in existence, that the M23 is a terrorist organization, that it is not defending anyone, and those are Rwandan troops inside the DRC territory. So these two factions have very hard standings that it will be very difficult for them to have a conversation on how to move on together. And some have even opined that that was a strategy perhaps by some players to impose these sanctions at that particular moment so that talks could not be held between the M23 and the Kinshasa government for the status quo to continue in Eastern DRC. Some are saying that there are some people who are greatly benefiting from this particular standoff in Eastern DRC. They are benefiting from the conflict that is ongoing in Eastern DRC. They are the ones who are getting a lot of money from these standoffs. And this does not only imply people inside the DRC, it also implies entities beyond the borders of DRC and Rwanda and even outside the continent of Africa. And while the continuation of fighting by both sides in Eastern DRC just denotes the fact that both of these parties are not ready to leave the struggle, they are not ready to meet on the table to have a discussion, and it will take some time before both of these parties agree on one thing. And the people in the middle who are suffering are the Congolese who are living in these areas, who are forced to move from one area to another, who are forced to live in camps because their homes are burnt, their homes have been taken by either the militia or the FARDC in this particular fight in Eastern DRC. I will continue to keep you informed of the latest happenings in Eastern DRC. Keep it bona fide.